Welcome back to Sentinel Talk Show. I'm thrilled to have a special guest today with me, a banking veteran, a cybersecurity expert, and today we're going to dive into very important topics on why CISO should be on board. We will talk about AI. We will talk about the next step of CISOs. Who's my guest? As I said, a banking veteran with 25 years experience, Hussein, all the way from Abu Dhabi, is joining me today. Welcome to Sentinel Talk Show, Hussein.
Thank you, Dr. Erdal. Right, it's really amazing to join you, right, and maybe share some of our own personal discussions we've had for the past few years. Right, really happy to be here, and even happier to have you as my host, Erdal.
Thank you very much. I know you well. We worked in the past in a global bank together. I was in first line, you were in second line. We were fighting during work hours and enjoying the fight after work hours, but people, they don't know you. Who are you? Tell us who you are.
Right. Okay. Very simply, right? Obviously, I've been in the cybersecurity domain for, let's say, now more than 30 years, right? And it has been all dedicated into mostly the financial sector at large. So currently, I'm the group CISO responsible for cybersecurity and privacy for a tier one bank in the UAE and the Middle East region. Before that, I was the global head of third-party security, partnership, and critical engagement in a multinational bank. And I was also the regional CISO for Africa and Middle East region. And before that, I was also the CISO for a Greek bank, right? I mean, we all have jobs, but I think if I'm going to summarize the most things I remember from my career, it was not projects, it was not initiatives, and it was not even the places that I worked in. It's basically the work that I've done for the community. So, for example, I was one of the key founders of Information Security Committee in a variety of Middle East countries. I am an active participant in cybersecurity engagement, let's say, with regulators and on country levels. I have a few dear working group that works with me to establish cyber awareness and cyber maturity in the Middle East and across several markets. So basically, partnership and passion about cyber is what actually makes me tick every day.
And I'm glad you are in the industry for so long. And today I'm gonna try to squeeze some knowledge from you. Looking at today landscape, I remember when you started 30 years ago. I mean, of course, you were not the CISO. We were just the IT guys, then the security guy, then the cybersecurity guy. But even today, I see that many companies are facing, or many CISOs are facing, issues on finding the seat on the board. And we worked in the past together. We had our seats in the necessary tables, but it wasn't that easy. What can you recommend for CISOs? How can they find their seats on the table, on the board?
Thanks, Erdal, and thank you for recalling the old memories together, right? I think if I'm going to summarize it, and by far, this question is by far the most asked questions among all CISOs, right? And obviously, for good reasons, a CISO would require visibility and authority to execute their job, right? And sometimes this job is not executed as every CISO wish because lack of, let's say, management buy-in or lack of visibility, especially at the board level, which are ultimately responsible for the cybersecurity risk of any organization, right? But I would say the answer to this is quite simpler than what most younger CISOs would like to think, right? It's basically how do you put yourself in any room? It's not just the boardroom, just any room. You place yourself in any room by being relevant, which means when you speak to the board, you want to speak about things that are relevant to them. And second thing, you must provide value, right? I mean, if what you're saying is not valuable to the board, right, then probably they would not listen. And number three, partnership. You have to know that a board is probably looking for the CISO as their partner and their subject matter expert to tell them what to do. So it's not the other way around. This is where I find most CISOs don't get it right. So to break out this simple framework, being relevant, right? So if you talk cybersecurity, if you talk vulnerabilities, if you take cybersecurity incidents, you're a bit, that mean, trying your luck. I mean, the board has an oversight over the overall organization. They are not required to be cybersecurity expert, and what they expect actually from the CISO is to talk to them about business, about the things that they know, and then tell them how cybersecurity is impacting their business and their bottom line. So this is being relevant. You have to be relevant. You have to make cybersecurity topic relevant to the board, right? So this
So
is
speak their language, not
yeah,
cybersecurity language, but speak the business language.
speak the business language, exactly, right? You have to create relevance, and also you have to create value. I mean, for example, one could speak about business and cybersecurity, but actually the topic itself might not be valuable to the board. So I think the second thing is you ask yourself, what is the impact of the topic I'm talking about? What is the value to the board? Will they use it to make a decision? Will it change a direction, right? Is it useful for the organization? So this is creation of value. So a CISO should spend a lot of time understanding what they're saying and what does it mean. I mean, we have a vulnerability, fine. What does it mean, right? What value does this bring to us? Will it impact our critical business? Will it cause us to have issues with our customers? Is it going to break one of the, let's say, our crown jewels that we rely on for our revenues? So this is the value, right? And the more you are an impactful person and measuring the impact of what you say on the board, the more they will want to listen to you because you're providing them with honest advice. I think the third part, which is partnership, right, or expertise, some CISOs I see carry a stick. They go to the board and they say, "Oh, if you don't do this, this, and this, right, we'll have this risk, we'll have this incident," and they try to monitor fear. I'm not of that school. I think it should be partnership. For example, if you're trying to launch a digital transformation, for example, right? How can I be a partner to the board on this? How can I tell them, look, it's going to be, since you're launching this digital transformation, I think from a cybersecurity perspective, I would advise you to do so and so, which will empower the image of the organization, which will protect our customers, which will make us avoid any increase the trust with the customer. So when we talk to the board, we have to assure them, right? We have to tell them what is working and then tell them what is not working and what's our plan about it. So this is partnership. You have to think, I mean, very few CISOs think of themselves as part of the senior management, right? Or even as part of the board advisory. In my opinion, a CISO should see themselves as equally responsible as the CFO, as the CDO, as the CIO, as anyone on the organization, on the future of the organization itself, and only talk from that perspective. So this is where you create partnership with the board.
I truly love what you said. I keep repeating this. We are on the same board, and if something happens, we're gonna be sink together or rise together. Thank you, Sain. Thank you. Talking about partnerships, this is not just with the board members, right? It's also with the peers and other cross-functional teams. I'll give you an example. When we first started, I mean, I never worked a bank directly before my previous job. I used to consult banks, but I remember you and I, we used to sometimes crash as a first line, second line, but after hours, you used to tell me the importance of working together as well. So do you mind if you give some examples of working together with cross-functional teams to find also the right path as well? Because we did change a lot in the past positively with this. So I know the answer, but again, what would you suggest to our peers?
Look, I think you're absolutely right, and let me tell you my view. Right, I think I'm one of the managers that thinks that there is something called a healthy conflict, right? Or let's say healthy heated discussions, if I would say so. Right. So basically, if you are a senior manager, and as a CISO, as we agreed, you need to treat yourself like that, right? And then you are trying to change an organization. There is no way that you change the organization without creating some sort of friction, right? So this is, I mean, friction can be negative friction and can be positive friction. So negative friction is exactly what you described. Some CISOs, for example, consider themselves, right, we're the policeman of the organization, we're going to say this, the bad thing is going to happen, blah blah blah, and accordingly they end up as let's say an undesired person in the room with their peers, right? But there is also the other way around. The other way around, which is creating a partnership, creating allies in the organization, making sure that you have your CIO, your CDO, your CFO, and everyone on in their chain actually on your side. And only then, right, you can start creating the positive friction, because you have built respect, you have built partnership, you've listened to the business, you understand what they are trying to achieve, and you're trying to help them to achieve it, but in a secure way. And when this discussion happens this way, it's not going to be all flowery meetings and discussion. We all know that this is not true. But even when the conflict points or the friction points appear, they will be able to listen to you. And I think this is one of the biggest advices I would give to everyone. Make sure that you listen carefully, but also make sure that you instill the habit of other people listening to you. This is the measurement of the success of the CISO in the organization.
Thank you, Sain. Thank you. I know you can talk all day about this, but let's quietly switch to other topics. Now, you mentioned relationships, the importance of relationships, and there is the good side of our role, which is, if when everything is okay, we are just a cybersecurity guy or the police trying to help the business. But unfortunately, sometimes bad things happen, like cyber incidents. And with this, we still need to work with the board, of course, then with the customers, then with the media. But my point here is different. What about general counsel? As CISOs, do you have to understand law? Or what do you think about CISOs tales to legal? We work in the past a lot with lawyers, not just during incidents, but as a cybersecurity mindset to have the incidents in our mind. So, what is your expert opinion on general counsel, legal? Why should CISOs partner with them? I changed the topic totally, but I stick in the partnership level. That's really, really important. And I think our fellow CISOs need to spend significant time on this. So, to repeat the question, do we have to be legal experts, or do we have to have a good partnership with general counsel?
Yeah, I think it's a very important point, Erdal, right? And I'm really happy that you mentioned the general counsel. I mean, very rarely that you see either a general counsel and a CISO sitting in the same room, and very rarely that you will find a general counsel talking about a CISO, and it's very
Unless
rarely that you
something
find.
happens, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
there is an incident. Let's speak.
Yeah, exactly. And a CISO talks about the general counsel. However, let's try to position this correctly, right? First of all, do we need to learn the law? I mean, as a CISO, definitely you will need to know a bit about your organization, a bit about its business. Maybe you're actually a CISO for a legal firm, right? But in any firm, you will definitely want to understand the legal implications at large, right? of your organization. It's part of the partnership that we talked about. If you're not relevant to your business, if you don't understand the compliance and legal implications of your business, then most probably that's not a good idea for you to be the CISO, right? But the second most important bit of it is how do you form your relationship with the GC or with the legal counsel, right? I mean, legal counsel is not only for law matters; they are also the advisor of the board. They are the trusted advisor of the board, and they are very critical in managing all matters and all decisions, right, for the board. So, if we go back to your first question about how to approach the board, then I would I would think that the GC or the general counsel is a great entry point to to the board, right? They have understanding of the whole organization. If a CISO partners with them and actually take the time to explain what is cybersecurity and what is the risk, then this means that they will consider this angle in their discussions with the board and in their own decisions, which is a big plus, because it's like you're having a digital twin or let's say a big brother ally that actually speaks to the board about cybersecurity. So I'm actually seeing the relationship more of a partnership, because also the GC job is also to manage the risk for the organization in front of the board. And cybersecurity risk is part of that. So most probably I would say keep the GC very close to you. Make sure that you have continuous updates. Make sure that if you're trying to raise a risk or you're trying to call out things, that you brief them to the GC, and also try to understand the pulse of the organization, of course, away from confidential stuff, right? And the feeling in the board from the GC. That's going to be your biggest ally. So I think the majority of alliance I would like to do in any organization is most probably with the GC, right? More than anyone else.
I totally agree, Sain. Totally agree. Now, with this, I want to also touch a little bit the regulations. We talked about sitting in the board. We talked about having relationship with other teams and GC. And now, as a CISO, I mean, as a banking CISO, especially, I know it's all about regulations. I remember all these meetings coming from the field to the bank. I was lost in the beginning, and I'm still thankful for all your insights. You know, regulations are important, but we had regulations, a regulation for regulations, right? So, why? I mean, of course, it's important to know regulations, but there is many beneficial stuff for us, because regulations sometimes, many CISOs hates regulations. Oh, who's gonna deal with that? But honestly, I understood that actually regulations are helping me to be more valuable, because when I go to the CIO, when I go to the CTO, sometimes like, hey, police, go away. But when I go with my regulators book in my hand, hey, I need this to happen because of this, then things are changing. So, as a CISO, especially for FSI, for a bank, the importance of regulations. And I know you read a lot about regulations, and you know most of the regulations by heart. So
Yeah.
there are so many regulations. Which one should they? First of all, importance of regulations, and then I will ask my next question.
All right. Okay. I think of course this is the let's say the I would say the bread and butter of cybersecurity is regulation, and especially in the banking sector. For the listeners who don't know, right, we're not only heavily regulated, we're sometimes multi-layered regulators. So we can receive cybersecurity regulations from different regulators to the same entity, federal, local, and others, right? And back to your question, Erdal, right? Regulations have several roles, right? Number one, I think in cybersecurity, at some point historically, when the adoption of cybersecurity understanding and risk was very low, the onus was on the regulators to issue these regulations in order to encourage the boards and the senior management to understand the cybersecurity risk and the need for investment in cybersecurity. But as we're in the Gen AI stage, I think that's a very old view of the regulation, right? I think the regulation now is becoming more of a maturity tool, or gives understanding of how you can measure yourself against a specific market, or against a specific, actually, global market. And one point I was discussing with actually one of the regulators, funny enough, right? Just a couple of days back, is the letter that was issued by 40 CISOs. They are saying that regulations are too many, too complex, it's too costly, right? And they are sending an open letter to everyone to remove the regulation, right? While this sounds, let's say, great as an idea, and of course, great news for the CFO because they're going to save a lot of money, right? But if you look at it from a regulator perspective, you will understand that it's not good for the overall hygiene and for the overall risk of the organization. So comes here a question, right? So what's the solution, right? I think the solution is something that I have been speaking with a few regulators for quite some time, and I think many of them globally are moving towards this, as far as I know, is regulatory harmonization. Which means what? Which means that separate entity has separate needs from a cybersecurity risk perspective. However, we all agree that we're all operating under the same finite set of cybersecurity controls and frameworks, right? Without naming anyone in particular. So the question here is, why not regulators are sitting with each other and then trying to come up, let's say, with less overlapping and less repetitive controls. There is also part of the harmonization related to why wouldn't regulators accept other regulators' regulation. So, for example, if I'm in a country, right, and I
Especially
know
within
that,
the same country, right?
yeah,
Especially
yeah,
within the same country.
especially within the same country and also globally, right? I mean, we're in a small world now. So there is a lot of discussions around regulatory harmonization, which I believe is the right way. So no regulation is not good. We cannot make it only best practices. Too much regulation is not good from a cost and complexity. Actually, we make the life of hackers easy, because when we make our environment complex with so many regulation and controls, it brings in more risk. And I think that regulatory harmonization, right, which has progressed a lot in the past few years, is going to be the future, in my opinion, and it is the solution.
Um, and putting all this together, is there any special regulations that we need to focus on? I mean, of course, in UAE, for example, you will talk about some others. In Europe, you're going to talk about some others. But as a CISO, I mean, as a global CISO, and you work in North Africa, you work in Middle East, you work in a global company. Yeah, you are based in Dubai, but you are the global head in a global bank.
Yeah.
Now you're the group CISO in a still global bank, even though they are more focused on Middle East. So, I mean, look, I can only so much, right? Yeah, I know both of us masters, PhD, books, this and that, but we're getting old. So which regulations should we focus as CISOs? Without mentioning name, I mean, you can say, for example, local regulations in your local country, then the answer is yours.
Look, I'll tell you my own preference. First of all, obviously, it's a very tricky. I mean, because in many parts of the world, regulatory non-compliance is a zero tolerance topic, right? So, by any mean, the reality of the planet we're living in is that we'll have to comply with all regulations, right? I mean, that's the gist of it.
It's not an
However,
option.
yeah, exactly, it's not an option, right? But if I was given the choice, right, I would choose, if you allow me, Erdal, three types of regulation, right? I would choose a regulations of the type that focuses on governance, and I would love to have principle based governance like Europe, for example. But On their own, this is not enough. I would also like to have maybe one detailed one that focuses on actual controls, right? And how they are built. Like, for example, you can take PCI, right? Or CSA, right? So these are, let's say, control dictating. And I would leave the in between actually for best practice. So basically, the concept is if you know the right thing to do, and all organizations should know the right thing to do, then the principles and governance are enough for you to drive the organization. For the highly critical and sensitive, let's say, industries, you can use a low level control, and you probably should harmonize, as I mentioned, and then have one. And then the rest should be best practice, because what kills any industry is limitation to innovation. And whether we like it or not, sometimes regulations create limitation for innovation. So you need to level the play field and say, create your own best practices. And I'm not a big fan of the best practice, but I'm a big fan of organization taking a principle, knowing what's the right thing to do, and then trying to come up with their version, right? And then come up with a partnership and so forth. So if I would do that, I would try and harmonize all the regulations, of course, for each country at least, on the level of principles, right? And for the highly critical ones, maybe there will be some control-based regulation, but otherwise, I would leave it to organization to do it. And I think we're really approaching that, because with the level of automation we're seeing in the cybersecurity control, very, very soon, it's going to all level up to one standard landscape and just too many different reports, right?
Every word you say brings memories into my mind. I was gonna ask you totally different question, but without going into details, I remember we were facing during pandemic. We were
Hmm.
in Dubai
Yeah,
in a global bank, and the local regulator were totally against cloud and
yeah,
cloud solutions. Then pandemic hit, and without cloud we could not I don't know if you remember, we couldn't find laptops to deliver because most of them were in desktops. We
yes,
didn't have enough licenses, we didn't have
yeah,
enough power, all
yeah,
this. So digital transformation comes back. Probably we will talk about this later, but it just, I remember the sleepless nights that we had as police,
yeah,
and how we work to make things happen. But this is as a side note. I mean, with you, I can be lost easily out of my track, but we have limited time. You mentioned Gen AI. Uh,
yes,
just, I know you are a hands-on person as well. So I was not going to ask any technical question today, but you brought it up again. I get out of track with you very easily. Um, should we be scared of AI? Should I'm not going to talk about. I had scientists from Microsoft in the show before. I have some other AI expert. I ask all these questions, but with you as a CISO, let's talk about adoption of AI by users. What are
yeah,
the critical use cases? So as a CISO, we have to ensure that our data stays securely within the organization. AI
yeah,
means data has been shared with the AI provider, because the
yeah,
AI is as good as the data is trained.
yeah.
So two options: are we going to cut AI, or are we going to limit what we share with AI and adopt AI? Your
All
opinion
right.
as CISO.
That's again another good question. I know AI is the hype, right? And everybody's looking at this from a black and white perspective. Do we allow AI? Do we block AI completely? Right? There are so many
Especially in
flavors.
banking, right? Especially in banking. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't want Microsoft, Google, Amazon, whatever, to train their data with my money, right? It's my
yeah,
money. Only
yeah.
my wife can know about it, or if I'm lucky, I can know about it, and that's it. And the government, so they can tax me. I don't want any third
Absolutely.
party to know.
Absolutely, and as you say, privacy in specific, not even cybersecurity, is one of the biggest concern with AI, right? And I mean, there are tons of opinions around AI and Gen AI, but I like what you mentioned, Erdal, around the users, right? And users come in two flavors, as we know, right? So there are end users, who are the employees who are trying to, let's say, do their job day to day, right? And then there is enterprises as users, right? Like banks, as you say, or big organizations and so forth, right? So focusing on the first one, I think AI has become, let's say, a little bit faster than any other technology in terms of evolving. That the human nature, and I'm talking about the poor end users, didn't have enough time to get used to it, to actually understand it, to actually know what is it. So this is why you would find the very far right, which is the, yeah, there is AI, we're enthusiastic about it, and we want to do more of it. And then you'll find the scary truth is, oh, AI is going to replace me, or I don't know how to use AI, and so forth, right? So I think this is a bigger problem for us to focus on. And how am I relating this to security? I'm relating this to security because at this stage and with this evolution, right? I don't think we can stop the inevitable. And I'm not a CISO who, let's say, by the way, encourages to stop progress by any means, right? I always try to find solutions. And but the adoption speed of AI is actually very confusing to the end users and your users, and how the protocol and how they use AI will make a huge difference in the security controls that you implement, the environment you are in. I mean, even if you are in banking and so forth, right? So the big worry here is actually, and if you ask me, is ignorance of the users, right? Because there wasn't much time for anyone to adopt to anything, right? Now, from an enterprise or big organizations perspective, I would like to think that this is a maturity journey. So adoption to AI and Gen AI should happen very, very slowly. A, to allow users to understand it, and then B, to actually create useful cases of AI. I mean, if you look at all the statistics, most of the investment thrown at AI is either unsuccessful or incomplete or doesn't meet ROI requirement, right? Which is I mean, many of the use cases, and this is mainly because we're trying to play with it rather than actually put it in a process whereby we learn it, we understand it, and then we build it. Cybersecurity is even harder because you're not only restricted or trying to restrict the AI, you're actually, as a CISO, in a very tough position right now because there isn't enough tools to monitor and restrict AI. It's very hard to do, right? And even cybersecurity providers, even Gartner, I was reading on it, right? There isn't enough maturity in the market. So basically, as a CISO, your job is very, very hard. It's either to say completely no, we don't want to use it, or you use it, however you understand the risks coming with it because the organization wants to learn it, but also you don't have the means and tools out there to protect your user and protect your organization information. I don't have a bulletproof answer. This is why every CISO must really understand the AI governance work, how it works, understand their privacy, their regulation, and be very good allies with the CIOs, with the CDOs, the CEOs, whomever is taking care of AI in your organization. Be their partner. Make sure that there is a governance process. Make sure that you inventory at least and understand the life cycle of AI and be there at each stage. I do not believe that CISOs worldwide have any claim to say that they can control the risks of AI, Gen AI, and agentic AI, but I believe we're on the way to. So you need to take it step by step.
Back to my pandemic example. If we don't adopt, one day there's going to be some use cases where AI is going to change most of
Absolutely.
the stuff, and
You
we
cannot.
ignoring it is going to put us behind.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I love your approach. Okay, so we're coming to the end slowly, but before I let you go, now looking at your career, how you started, looking at my career, how I started. Both of us are CISOs. I'm a CISO in a global cybersecurity firm. which was managing once upon a time more than 60% of the world's SSL. You were a global CISO in a global bank, then now a bit smaller bank, but much more impactful. So, are you going to stay CISO for until you retire? So, what's next? What are we going to do next? Are we going to be the CEOs or are we going to just retire? What is next for a CISO?
Erdal, you always end up with the hardest questions at the end, right? While I thought I finally made it, right?
I
You give
thought
me
you
the
missed me.
hardest.
I thought you missed me. Remember our discussions?
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's benefit our users or our listeners, actually, right? I think again, I mean, let's talk statistics. So recent statistics, and everybody knows about it. The levels of burnout, the level of actually CISOs changing careers is huge, right? So this means that if you're going to be a CISO, most probably you're going to be under a lot of stress, and you might end up changing the whole job or your whole career later on. This is why what's the next step for a CISO is it's quite a very personal question, right? There is no specific answer. Actually, I've asked one of the big researchers for this question in specific, and they came up with specific statistics. So, for example, most of 20% of the CISOs in the non-financial sector will become CROs, right? I would say up to 40% something of them will become consultants, and I think another 20% are going to be CEOs, right? So and many and the rest of the percentages, I guess they're going to completely change their career, and they're not going to be CISOs, and they're not going to touch on anything related to cybersecurity, right? So within this let's say, confusing landscape of reality of what CISOs have to do next, I believe it's a very personal and journey, right? And I can only share my own experience, right?
Please.
And everyone should build their own, right? I think every successful person, not just a CISO, they should go for an aim. They should have a goal, right? And they should go to build that goal over the years. I mean, for example, I have this passion of learning new things, trying new things, right? I like to be an unpaid advisor to startups and cybersecurity and other yeah, and other industries, right? It's my passion. And what's next for me? I would say, all right, I would love to be part of a small and agile organization and help shape how it operates. I would like to be in an innovation or innovative cybersecurity product, and actually, I do that with intention. So, for example, with my current organization, I have convinced them to do a startup cohort, right, for cybersecurity. So I actually convinced them that cybersecurity is one of the most growing industries worldwide, and we can actually, as a bank, we can start empowering them by onboarding them, and maybe who knows, right? Maybe someone would like to invest in them in the future, right? So I'm keeping it open, but it's my passion. I think it's my passion. It's very personal. I think every CISO should have this me time and think about what's next, right? And build ahead from there. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Saint. Thank you. We doubled our time. We said 20 minutes, but we already hit nearly 40 minutes. Thank you very much.
Expected, very
And I
much
know
expected.
we can do another 400 minutes. We did it in
All
the
right.
past. So it's always a pleasure speaking to you. Any last words?
No, my last word is possibly thank you, Ardal, for allowing me this time, right, and allowing me to talk to your listeners. And I would advise them. Let's say I'm very visible on LinkedIn. I'm very approachable person. I usually respond to every message. But I would say if you are a student, if you are someone in academia, you're trying to do research and you want some sort of mentorship, then please reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you are a startup, then please follow through my posts. You might find things that you will like, right? And for all others, as I mentioned in the beginning, provide a value and meaningful communication, and possibly we can become friends. Who knows?
Thank you, Saint. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erdem.
With this, we're coming to another end of a very insightful episode. A massive thank you for our incredible guest, Hussein, a very good friend of mine. He shared his thoughts about the current CISO and what is there for the next CISO. Thank you for everybody who watched. We appreciate your support. Be sure to follow us for more. Hussein's name was on the screen, Hussein Badat. You can see it in the post. Please go ahead and follow him. And thank you very much, and see you next week.